Good evening. This is October 30th, Monday evening, 2023. We're getting ready for the final day of October. This is something totally amazing. We're going to talk about why this is amazing towards the end of this episode over here. But we want to speak... We want to speak about tomorrow for a couple of reasons. Number one, the first snowfall of the season is expected across the upper Midwest, and this is going to be a significant snow for some people. This is a clipper-type system with strong upper dynamics. Now, here's the thing that people have to realize. The National Weather Service does an excellent job, as usual, at making this attention-grabbing, especially if you read the hazardous weather outlook, which I think maybe we'll do in this episode if we still have time. But when you hear the hazardous weather outlook, you just really start to get the feel like there's a really big storm coming. And it's important, I think, for people to realize that the actual forecast is that probably is not going to happen. However, the way I interpret it is that we have a synoptic weather setup capable for something pretty significant for tomorrow. But these things only play out, let's say, 2 or 3 out of 10 times. Most of the time, these are almost like worst case scenarios. They don't really play out. With that being said, let's just explain a little bit of what's going on. The terminologies that are being used, you'll hear thunderstorms being used, snow, you don't hear any rain, but the National Weather Service forecast. So what does that mean? Are we getting thunder snow tomorrow? If you hear the marine forecast, you'll hear tornadoes, water spouts on Lake Michigan. This is very intense stuff. You'll go into the forecast discussion. You'll read about 3 different bands of snow, 3 windows of opportunity for snow here in the Chicago area. This has extra significance because this is actually covering this local area that I am speaking about. I've centered the weather station over Mount Trashmore because I found it to be most accurate. For people who are not familiar with Chicago, Mount Trashmore is the actual name of a hill here in the Chicago area. It's in Evanston, Illinois. Really, it's very close to the West Rogers Park area. This area that is being forecasted, there is a lot of diversity, a lot of different cultures that live here. We're talking about a large Jewish community, large Muslim community, large Christian community just to the west, all different types of cultures. And we know there are people tomorrow evening, there are people who have these customs. I know it's not within the Jewish community, but we do have children that will be going out in the evening. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an update as to what the best time would be. With this, all I'm doing in regards to that is sharing with you information that you could find on the National Weather Service website within the forecast discussion. But I'll also be sharing with you some other information as well. I'm trying to present it in a pretty clear way to try to get some accuracy on this and to understand exactly what's going on. Number one, we have an Alberta clipper. It's actually a storm system that resembles an Alberta clipper. These are the types of storm systems that develop in the beginning of December. These usually do not happen at the end of October, but nonetheless, it is happening. These things usually produce a quick hitting 1 to 2 inches of snow. Usually, they're moisture starved. They're strong systems many times, but they're moisture starved. So this system is very similar. We have a widespread 1 to 2 inches of snow occurring over Minnesota, Wisconsin as well. And then we have its associated front that moves through the Chicago area. That front, if you look on the European computer model, it moves through the Chicago area mid-morning tomorrow, maybe 10 a.m. in the morning. If you're going to make Mount Trashmore, for those people living in the West Rogers Park area, you know exactly which area this is referring to. Okay, so about around 10 a.m., that's the first chance for snow here in the Chicago area. Places to our west will be getting snow before that. Those places that get snow earlier in the morning, that snow will be sticking about 1/10, 2/10, 3/10 of an inch. That's because temperatures are going to be really cold tonight. Temperatures dropping into the 20s. In fact, 25 states tonight are under freeze watches and freeze warnings and freeze advisories. So, and the Chicago area is under a freeze warning for tonight. So, very cold temperatures tonight, definitely cold enough for snow to stick. But by the time the precipitation makes it into the Chicago area by 10 a.m., temperatures will be borderline cold. So, it will be difficult for the snow to stick on the roadways. And this is just a short 1 hour. National Weather Service tells us this first batch will be about 1 hour, maybe an hour and a half. That's about it. The European computer model, other models as well, showed happening around 10 a.m. So you can, 10 a.m., you could add like an hour, something like that, 9:30 to 11, 10 to 11:30, something like that. Then the precipitation stops. Okay, now we come on to precipitation band number 2. You look at the different models, you'll see some of them have it going from 2 to 4, others from 1 to 3. 1 to 3 could mean it starts a little bit before 1, it ends a little bit after 3, something like that. But with the peak more like at 2 or 3, some models show just rain, some of them say just snow. But even the models that say just rain, those strangely, like the high resolution rapid refresh model, also is showing the coldest temperature. So I think everyone agrees that it's going to be snow, falling as snow. Regardless as to what the models say, precipitation falling as snow for most of the area. The one exception might be areas right along the lake, and the definite exception is for Lake Michigan itself, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Now, let's just talk about what's going to be happening in the early afternoon for tomorrow, early to mid-afternoon. So you read about the National Weather Service forecasts, snow squalls, a few lightning strikes, damaging wind gusts. You read about this stuff and you start to wonder, like, wow, this is really hazardous stuff. And then they start comparing it to some event that happened in 2018, October 20th. So is this really going to be happening? So I believe that is a worst case scenario. We have a synoptic weather setup capable for that to happen, which means it could happen. That could very well happen. And in reality, it probably will be close to that, but not exactly that. And that makes all the difference in the world, because if it's not that, then it's not that. If the winds are not damaging wind gusts, then it's not damaging wind gusts. The few lightning strikes, okay, where, when are they going to happen? I mean, thunder snow, that's something that's powerful stuff. You know, the University of Missouri did a study that showed that 88% of the time, underneath the lightning strike, there's at least 5.7 inches of snow. So, you know, this is strong stuff, and the chances are none of this is going to impact our snowfall accumulation. At least that's not what I'm thinking. And also, if you read outside the National Weather Service forecast discussion and stuff like that, and outside the hazardous weather outlook, you won't really hear so much about this. So snow squalls, some heavier snow showers, stuff like that, most of it will be melting. You know, temperatures will be above 32. We do have, however, the dew points happen to be 10 degrees lower than the temperatures. That gives us an opportunity for something called evaporative cooling. That means that as the snow falls, especially, and they'll tell you there's another type of cooling that happens when the precipitation becomes heavier. That's called dynamic cooling. That could actually bring cold air down to the surface, which could actually cause temperatures to drop, and that could cause snow to accumulate. That is a possibility. These are hazards that the best thing to do is to be prepared for all of these types of hazards. But for the weather enthusiasts that are just, they get high on this types of stuff, they're setting themselves up for disappointment if we are to rely upon this and you see it doesn't happen. So in regards for safety, nothing's better than to follow what the National Weather Service says. In regards to making sure you don't set yourself up for disappointment and you're a weather enthusiast, just realize the chances of all that coming true it's not really as exciting as what they're going to make it seem. Probably 1 or 2 out of 10 times it actually does end up being like that, but usually not. So we go through the morning snow, basically doesn't really accumulate in Chicago because the snow arrives after temperatures have already hit 32 or a little bit above 32. Maybe something on some grassy surfaces. The afternoon snow doesn't really accumulate, maybe slightly a little bit because temperatures are well above 32. Okay, maybe a little bit on grassy surfaces, maybe some reduced visibility. That's a possibility. This is 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock according to one model. But by 5 o'clock, it's over. Temporarily, it's over. The next band, and this is the mysterious band, that comes in at 7 o'clock. So people who are going to be out and about tomorrow evening, so you have that window of maybe a little bit after 4 until maybe a little bit before 7, that 2-hour window, maybe it's going to end up being more, where things are expected to be dry. Maybe it will be dry longer. But at 7 o'clock, that's when a lot of unknowns come together, and that's because the next system is connected to Lake Michigan, and lake effect snow is difficult to forecast. This situation that we're speaking about tomorrow night is actually a little bit more complex than the regular lake effect snow because we're dealing with a mesoscale. It's like a miniature low pressure system, multiple miniature low pressure systems developing right over the lake. You have to realize something. It's amazing because November, the storms that develop over the storms that cross the lake, the Great Lakes in the month of November, they are called November witch storms. Witch, W-H-I-T-C-H. These storms blow up to strengths that are unprecedented during any other time of the year. The reason for that is because of the warm water temperatures. Warmth rises, low pressure rises. It causes these storms to intensify. We've had storms on Lake Michigan that have sunk these ships called the I think it was called the Fitzgerald. I don't remember exactly, but there's certain major ships that have been sunk as if we're dealing with an ocean or in a hurricane. So the November storms are very powerful. So tomorrow's October 31st, but like literally hours before midnight, it's, it's really a 30.0 low pressure system. It's moving across the area. It hits Lake Michigan, and it's very reasonable to assume that multiple little low pressure systems are going to develop right along the Lake Michigan area as it goes over the warm water. Once those things develop, so snow comes on. It's a system. It's a real system. It's not just lake effect snow. Snow develops on the backside of these little systems. So snow, 7 o'clock p.m., all models, I believe, are forecasting snow. By 8 o'clock p.m., it depends on the model. Some of the models have the snow continuing to midnight, some of them even after. But I believe the good old European computer model has the snow ending at 8. So there's a lot of uncertainty over there. Also, which part of Chicago you're in, that's going to make a very big difference. The further south in Chicago, the more connected, it seems like, the more connected you're going to be to these mesoscale systems. In regards to lake effect snow, this is a powerful line. Lake effect snow develops when you have a 20-degree difference Fahrenheit between the water temperatures and 1 mile up above the surface, says meteorologist Tom Skilling. Okay, tomorrow it's going to be a 40-degree difference tomorrow night. So this is going to be heavy stuff. Heavy precipitation will be developing, and as the temperatures get colder, that precipitation will be falling as snow. This is for northwest Indiana, probably places like South Bend, Indiana as well. I would have to look into it. But here's the other thing. So when the National Weather Service starts talking about thunderstorms, the place where the highest possibility for that happening, and probably the main possibility for that happening, the main place is Lake Michigan. That's where thunderstorms become a real possibility because the lake water temperatures are so warm. The air over there is going to be shooting up into the upper atmosphere. Storms may develop over Lake Michigan. However, over Lake Michigan, it's going to be too warm during the day for the precipitation to be falling as snow. That's where the precipitation is going to be falling as rain. So the thunderstorms might be over Lake Michigan. Those things might be falling as rain. Over here, we have snow. We have these snow showers. It's actually called snow squalls, which is similar to summertime thunderstorms, just without the thunder and without the lightning. The National Weather Service does point out that the dynamics are favorable for a few lightning strikes tomorrow afternoon, even in the areas getting the snow, but it's not really anything more significant than just a strong front that moves through, producing some heavier snow showers. Most of the stuff is going to melt and stuff like that. But be prepared for this hazardous stuff just in case things do materialize and become worse. Tomorrow night, there's even talk about a possible need to issue a winter weather advisory. Of course, that's not a winter storm warning, but that would mean several inches of snow would be accumulating in some locations, or just very windy and a little bit of snow accumulating in some locations. So, these are all possibilities. There's a lot of unknown with tomorrow night because it involves Lake Michigan and the lake effect snow, the direct lake effect snow, which is also difficult to forecast. However, there's more, that's easier to forecast than these little mesoscale systems, which really feels almost like thunderstorms, which are very hard to forecast, which would be impacting Chicago. Here's the other thing, and this really throws another variable into this, which complicates it, is that the areas which are going to be most strongly impacted by the mesoscale systems developing on Lake Michigan are going to be places closest to the lake, and those are going to be the places where the precipitation may not be cold enough to fall as snow. So, to know exactly where there could be snow, and this would be after 7 o'clock tomorrow, it's just very difficult to figure out. Okay, so this is anyways the local Chicago forecast. Again, we have a dynamic synoptic weather setup, which could support multiple hazards for tomorrow on Lake Michigan and also in the Chicago area in regards to reduced visibility and in regards to snowfall. However, if a person wants to make accuracy the main goal over here, probably the best thing is to just realize that these upper dynamics, the weather setups and everything, are rarely felt by the public, and the things that go on in the upper atmosphere are totally awesome, and it's like such a pity that nobody knows about it. Even this thing that happened in Montana with the polar vortex, the disruption of the polar vortex, nobody really knows a thing. No records were broken. It's unbelievable the stuff that was going on there. Feet of snow was falling, temperatures dropping to 0 degrees, but the air stuck around there for a significant period of time, and the air is coming here, and to us it just feels like a nice unseasonably cold October day. That's what's going to be here tomorrow, but there's a lot more going on than just that. But most people are going to walk out and just feel like basically things are pretty much normal. In fact, the average flakes of the season occur October 31st, so we are right on time here in the Chicago area for the first flakes of the season. If there is measurable snow, we are a little bit early in regards to that. I believe we would be 2 weeks early if we do end up seeing a 1/10 of an inch of snow. But it pretty much is going to resemble just a cold Chicago day. And the hazardous weather outlook will resemble hazards. That's so there's really a lot going on in the upper atmosphere, but things will likely just be cold and windy with heavier snow showers at times, but lots of dry periods for tomorrow and tomorrow evening. So again, the time period in tomorrow late afternoon and evening, if people are going out, the best time to do that would be before 7, probably even before 6:30, or stay in touch with the National Weather Service, and you could see exactly for yourself. But I do know that the 3 windows of opportunity for snow is 1, tomorrow morning, 2, tomorrow early to mid-afternoon, and the third one is starting at 7 p.m. The third one is where they gave an exact time. Not only did they give an exact time, the European computer model also shows 7 p.m. For Mount Trashmore, the morning one is 10 a.m. and the afternoon one is either 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. depending on the model, ending at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. depending on the model, and it can always be within 30 minutes of those time periods. So thank you for listening. We'll just say it's all good news after this. It's amazing how quickly we go into a zonal flow. The Arctic air gets blocked off again, and we warm up quickly into the 50s. In fact, we might even go into the low 60s by this Shabbos. Big storm develops again next week. There are indicators that a storm will be developing next week on November 7th on Tuesday. And then this is far out into the future. The strength of that storm then gets transferred off the Carolina coast. I believe this is called a powerhouse Miller B scenario. And then that thing, the European computer model shows that thing blowing up as a monster nor'easter. Really very, very serious stuff. It's in the Midwest. It's like a 29.7, 29.6, 29.5, 29.3 as it hits the Ohio area, and then it transfers over off the East Coast. It goes to 29.1, 28.9, 20. It keeps intensifying, and it sucks cold air down, and you'll see a very large area of snowfall develop Tuesday, Wednesday. That's something to keep an eye on. And by Wednesday already, we have another storm system developing over Texas, and you could see, probably connected to that system, a large area in the Dakotas has snow. So there's something going on for the mid part of next week. The whole question over there is, will there be Arctic air behind that storm? That's the question for here in the Midwest. It's also a question for the East Coast. I don't really think so. Now, here's the amazing thing that I wanted to end off with, which we started off with. Maybe about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, we were saying, it might have been at the very end of September or the beginning of October, we were saying that there's lots of warm air. This had to have been the very end of September. This is right before the holiday of Sukkot. There's lots of warm air in the country. There's lots of cold air off into the west part of the country. And all forecasters agree that at some point in October, the cold air, everyone agreed, the cold air out west will hit the areas over here, out east. The whole question is, when will it happen? And it's happening. We did it. It's the final day. We did it, though. It's in October. It's already here. We have October. This was even colder than what we would have thought, but because they got a serious taste of Arctic. But it's here, the final day. We almost didn't make it. It's October 31st. Tomorrow, it finally gets here with a shot of snow, a real winter feel. Exactly, to just fulfill those words exactly. It comes in and then it goes, and temperatures warm right back up, not to where we were last week, but the flow from the Arctic is cut off almost immediately, and temperatures respond right away, going straight into the 50s, and there are indicators that temperatures might even go into the 60s by this upcoming Shabbos Saturday. Thank you for listening. I wish everyone a wonderful week, and stay safe.